Rabbi Rick Jacobs is the president of the Union for Reform Judaism. He is a tireless advocate for an Israel that is secure, Jewish, democratic, pluralistic, with a vibrant Reform Jewish community. Rabbi Jacobs has studied for 2 decades at Jerusalem Shalom Hartman Institute, where he is a senior rabbinic fellow. He is with us tonight as part of a whirlwind tour, having just finished his time at the CCAR conference in Chicago with more than 400 Reform rabbis. He is here with us tonight in Toronto to support our beloved Camp George in its recovery from that fire which destroyed the Cheder Ochel, and will soon be with our teenagers in Ottawa at the very first Canadian Litaken, an advocacy seminar that trains Reform Jewish teenagers, including many from our own youth group Habsti, to speak to their government about the pressing issues of the day and the future. Tonight, it is our pleasure to learn from him as our teacher and rabbi, Morenu Harav, Rick Jacobs.
Shabbat Shalom. It's great to be back at Holy Blossom. It's been a while, but it is a joy to be here. But first, I got to clarify who I am, because yes, you heard my name, you heard something on my title, but it's really important, particularly on this Shabbat, that I say the following. I'm the president of the Union for Reform Judaism. I lead the North American Reform movement. I am not the one who leads the American Reform movement, because the URJ is an unbelievably strengthened unification of U.S. and Canadian Reform Judaism. We are bound together for good. At the URJ, we strive every day to live the Torah's commandment, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. You see, Canada is our neighbor, and therefore, we love you. And the Torah is crystal clear. We're not supposed to hate our neighbors, or bully them, or extort them by charging exorbitant tariffs. All this is to say, we stand with you. You are our family. And we strongly oppose the way the current U.S. president is acting against our beloved neighbors in Canada. And if by raising my voice against policies of the current U.S. government, I am the target of retribution, then so be it. We are a people commanded to live out our values and raise our voices for the values and principles upon which our Torah and tradition is built. This is a moment in history when we especially feel this fundamental obligation. Now I feel better. I hope you feel better. So I love being in this congregation for 1,000 reasons. I won't tell you all of them, but you may know that my predecessor, Rabbi Maurice Eisendrath, was the beloved rabbi of this congregation, and even it is told that in the main sanctuary, there's a place where it was very much created for his preaching, so that you wouldn't need amplification, but you have to stand in this exact spot. So I was here a number of years back, and we wanted to try it out. And again, we don't necessarily all have the same voice as Rabbi Maurice Eisendrath, but you know what? It's amazing. But I have to say, it is unbelievable to see not only this congregation that he loved and led, but to see how much it has changed. Now, you may know that your senior rabbi is amazing. She reached out not only once, but twice, I think maybe even 3 times to me, and she explained that I'm not going to be there on the Friday night when you're there. Do not take it personally, because I am in the last minutes of my sabbatical. I would add a very deserved sabbatical. So I responded, again, it wasn't private. I'm going to just share with you. I said, you deserve every minute. So wherever you're going to be for the last Shabbat of your sabbatical, soak it up. and bring back that new, refreshed, and energized, remarkable rabbi that we love so much. Now, how can a rabbi take off and leave such a storied congregation for these last months? Well, I actually have a sense, and so do you, because I know this clergy team. And I am certain that what Rabbi Splansky knew is that they would take loving care of this congregation, and she would be free to do what she needs to do so that she can continue to be that rabbi. What a remarkable, honestly, we could probably staff 5 congregations with your clergy. But don't worry, I'm not gonna, I know you think, well, you probably have some designs on them. Well, but you just should know that the quality, and again, Cantor Rosen, I have to say, I was a neighbor of his in Westchester, New York. And those nice people are still talking about this Cantor. And I know you love him, but please know there are a lot of folks on this Reform movement that love him as well. And Rabbi Kay, I mean, the way you stepped in and so graciously opened not only this congregation, but have so cared for this community. And our cantorial soloist, Lindy Rivers, what a beautiful, I mean, the music. If I just came to pray with you tonight, Dayenu, it would have been enough. Now, there's something about this congregation. It seems like it's a greenhouse for leaders. I don't know if you know how that works, but it seems that pretty much everyone who comes into professional or lay leadership here goes on to, you know, do amazing things. So I've had the pleasure of getting to know your new president, Eric Royer, because he has come to not one, but 2 of our conferences just in the last few months. And what a privilege to have you take your rightful place. But can I also say sacred partnership is what we teach at the Scheit Seminar. And so a lot of congregations say, what are you talking about? Sacred partnership between clergy and lay leaders? We don't know what that is, but you know what that is here, because that's the practice. So I think of the past presidents who are sitting here that I've had the privilege of working with in my position, Phyllis Denenberg, Ava Rosen. I certainly know that we have this Joan Garson. Where's Joan? Over there. I know you've done, you know, Art Sander, you've got the whole thing. I don't know exactly where to put David Baskin, but I'll just put him. The reason that a lot of us will one day retire with a dignified pension is because of a lot of people, but no one more than David Baskin. And just so grateful for all the leaders that you've created and the ones who are looking around this room who are about to step in. I am also slightly disappointed that the timing worked out that I'm here this weekend and not next week when we will celebrate 2 remarkable leaders of our global reform movement here. And though I'm not able to be here, I just need to say to Carol Sterling and Elliot Jacobson, God bless you for the remarkable leadership and the strength of that leadership, not just locally, but literally around the globe. All right, a little Torah. I didn't get invited here just to say thank you and hello. So just a little bit of Torah if we have a moment on this Erev Shabbat. So as you've heard and as you know, we are at the end of the book of Exodus. And it turns out there are 3 large-scale building projects within that book. Some of them are pretty obvious. They scream out of this week's parsha. Some may be less obvious. And I'll just point them out and not have this chance to do a little dialogue. The first thing is a building project that's not our people's project. They're literally enslaved to build pyramids with soul-crushing work for the Egyptian tormentors. We know that they also build an Egel HaZahav. They build a golden calf for their insecurity and their longing for something to fill in for the created one of the universe. And then in the last chapters that we focus on, we have this remarkable Mishkan. And I don't know about you, but I think we're in the Mishkan right now. And it was the first praying place of our people. Now, these projects force us to reflect upon what are we going to do with our time, our talent, and our treasure. And I must express first a little bit of awe for this congregation's creativity and building. I was here when we were just talking about all these new spaces. And I remember the conversations. I was here when we were doing what Parashat Truma talks about, which is figuring out how we're going to pay for all of this. And then I came when it was under construction, and your Rabbi Splansky made us put hard hats on. And when climbing through the construction, and the construction workers said, "Be careful over there, be careful." And Rabbi Splansky said, I know, we'll be careful. And then I've only seen it with my eyes, not just with pictures, tonight. And this is one spectacular, spectacular holy space that you have created that helps us to gather and to do the most holy things that we do in Jewish life. I also want to say, as you've heard, I came north, particularly this weekend. And one of the reasons I came was because our beloved Camp George didn't just experience a really dramatic fire that took our dining hall, but we're trying to connect and reconnect and amplify the network of love that that camp represents. And so I've spent the last 2 days with Jeff Rose, who's the director of Camp George, thinking about how are we going to also envision the next chapter, not just to put back a dining, well, we'll have a dining hall, and we'll have a great summer, and we'll also feed the kids, don't worry, this summer. But we want to think about how do we make a camp that's not 2 months of the year, but really is year-round, a place where all of us can come and to deepen our connection to Jewish life. We've learned in our Reform movement, we had an experience on the West Coast with Camp Newman, which literally didn't have its dining hall, had the whole thing, was taken from us in a fire. It's actually taught us that congregations and camps aren't really about the buildings. It's nice to have buildings. It's especially nice to have gorgeous buildings, but it's really not about the buildings. And we're reminded at the beginning of the series of Parshiot that describe the planning and then the building of that first praying place. It says, "Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." God says, make me a mishkan so that I can dwell not in it, but in the people, in the community, in the holy work that we do. And so it is that we celebrate these remarkable spaces that we create, but we're not confused. It's about what we do inside those spaces with the people that matter so much. And as we turn our gaze eastward, we know that our beloved Israel is just beginning the monumental task of rebuilding the communities along the Gaza border and along the northern Lebanese border. Our Reform movement has unbelievably close ties to the kibbutzim and the communities right along the Gaza border. And earlier this week at the CCAR, which is our Reform Rabbinical Association, we met in Chicago with, I think it was 450 Rabbi K. I didn't count all of them, but we were there in amazing strength. And we had some of our inspirational Israeli Reform rabbis who came over to share with us where we are. And I spoke with, again, they're all inspiring, but one in particular, Rabbi Yael Vurgan. She's the rabbi of Shara Negev, right along the Gaza border. And she said she railed. She didn't speak, she railed against the current Israeli government's decision to resume the war instead of prioritizing the return of the hostages from their deadly dungeons. Don't take her word for it, don't take my word for it. It turns out that today a study was released in Israel that said that 69% of Israelis support stopping this latest phase of the war. Why? So we can bring out as many of those hostages who are alive and all those who need to come home. 54% of people who support the current coalition also said that. That's overwhelming. And I'm wearing a tallis. I know you're thinking, what's that tallis? This is a tallis. I didn't have it made. Rabbi Stephen Lowenstein from Am Shalom in Glencoe, Illinois, created these talitot that all of the rabbis and cantors of Am Shalom in Glencoe wear. Now in the High Hall has been wearing them. This tallis is a tallis of protest. It's a tallis that would go like this and say, let's not talk about bringing them home. Let's bring them home. And I apologize if anyone's sense of propriety in talking about leaders is somehow compromised by saying that the phase of the war we are in is a phase that will likely end lives of people we are responsible to save. I remember being with Rabbi Vorgan on Kibbutz Nachal Oz. Right after, in May of 2021, there was a whole set of rocket attacks, and the community lived in their bomb shelters. And then the Shabbat, when they came out of the bomb shelters, she invited us to come down, and it was a wonderful Shabbat. Amir T-Bone and his father, Noam T-Bone, you know their story. And she invited me to offer the Devar Torah. Well, I was honored to do it. And I finished the Devar Torah, and I was walking down and going to take my seat, and a woman came up to me, put her hand out, and said, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a rabbi. I've heard something like that before, and I didn't disagree with her, but I said, I wonder if you could help me understand what you're referring to. She said, I am from this kibbutz. I just spent the last 3 weeks in the bomb shelter with my children and my grandchildren. And do you have any idea what that's like? And I said, I am sure I have no idea what that's like. And she said, do you know what I thought about for 3 weeks when I was in that bomb shelter? Do you know? I said, I don't know. What did you think about? She said, all I could think about were the mothers in Gaza who didn't have bomb shelters to go to. And I thought, if there's a Jewish Mother Teresa, it's Tammy Levitan. This fall, I was at Hostage Square with our reform movement that every Motzei Shabbat is doing not only a Havdalah, but really waking people up to the power of our tradition and the power of this moment. And Tammy spoke. Turns out her daughter and granddaughter were taken hostage on October 7th. They were part of the lucky ones who were returned after the first month, but she's been there time and time again. She's 86 years old, and she's filled with fire, and she just let all of us have it, saying, do not get accustomed to the people who are in Gaza being in Gaza. Let's bring them home. Now, we have some pretty remarkable people. Let me talk a little bit about Canada. Would it be all right? I mean, we are here after all. And I think we're a North American movement, right? We definitely are. So it turns out that the hate that Israel's been enduring is not localized to the Middle East or to Israel. The uptick in anti-Semitism, it's pretty much around the globe, and it's here in Canada, and it is growing. And it reminds us that our job is to build a world without hate, but it's not so easily accomplished. A few weeks ago, Temple Emmanuel, Beth Shalom, our Reformed congregation in Montreal, was the latest Canadian Jewish institution to be vandalized by anti-Semitic graffiti. Rabbi Lisa Grushko, the brilliant leader of this Reformed congregation, she wrote a piece. She was interviewed by the local Montreal paper. Oh my goodness, this is a lesson about what we do in the face of anti-Semitism. What did she say? First, she said she couldn't believe the silence of the community around her in the face of this anti-Semitism. But rather than just get mad, which we would understand, she said, let's bring this to taking people from this incredible uptick in anti-Semitism to a new era of understanding. So she made some specific suggestions for the wider non-Jewish community. First, she said, check in with your Jewish friends. It's really isolating to be on the receiving end of anti-Semitism. Just call them up. Ask them how they're doing. She said, it may seem small, but again, it will matter. And she said, if comments, anti-Semitic comments or jokes are made around you, don't leave it to the Jewish person in the room to respond. She said, if there's no Jewish person in the room to respond, it's important to say something. She said, be an ally. And then she said, if your local synagogue would welcome your presence at services, and if you go, pay attention to the security precautions we have to take. Tell us you've come to show support. Come see what we love about Jewish life. This is a response. I believe, of course, in security and all the physical things we do, but this is a strategy to build more connective tissue, which is also about keeping us safe. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's time to vote in Canada. Did anybody else notice this? I know you're thinking, does the rabbi know what's going on here? Probably not like you know, but I'll tell you, there's a hugely important political election in the future of Canada. It would be wrong, however, for me or any member of our clergy or leadership to tell anybody what they should be voting for. But it's not wrong to say, let's vote. But there is one election that I actually am going to get specific and say, not only should you vote, I'm going to tell you who I pray that you will vote for. And that is, we're having a World Zionist Congress election in Canada. You haven't had one for a while, so the muscles that just need to get back into shape so we can really make sure that our Canadian Reformed community is able to really show up. It's for really important reasons. We're going to have over $1 billion in play in funding for things we care about, our movement that's underfunded by the government. It's for democracy, it's for pluralism, it's for leadership in so many of the key institutions. And there are 6 mandates that we were able to win in previous elections, and we got to keep those 6. If we grew it to 7 or 8, that would be okay too. And I can tell you, our Israeli Reform movement, they're not just hopeful. They're insistent that we are successful. And luckily in the congregation tonight, we have one of the co-chairs of ARTSA Canada. I'm looking at Jeff Denberg. Thank you for all the leadership that you and others done. Last night I was with Miriam Perlman. You've got to be all in. And if you're looking for even a little more inspiration, Joan, can I count on you to make sure this crowd shows up, votes, and not 100 from Holy Blossom. I think we should be doing, I'm not going to tell you the number, but 5,000, 10,000, I don't know. A good number like that. And as you heard, we're having our first Litaken in Canada. We've been talking about this for decades. And the idea we've done Litaken in Washington, D.C., I know what the Canadians think. Okay, well, that's nice. What does that do for us? Well, the answer is it's going to take place this week. It's already taking place right now in Ottawa. And I'm hoping to make my way to Ottawa tomorrow morning, say an extra prayer for this beautiful weather that we're welcoming. And those teens that are showing up, many of them from right here and from our congregations in the neighborhood, they're showing up because they want to train their voices to be able to raise issues that are not just personal issues or just congregational, but should be for all those. And can I just single out WRJ? Sarah Charney is here, immediate past president of WRJ. WRJ said there should be a beautiful Canadian Litaken, but more than that, they've been so generous to make sure that we were able to do it. Thank you, and more thank you. And it is going to be something to remember. Rabbi Kay saying, did you remember how much time I told you to take? I did, and I'm in the bottom of the ninth, I promise you. You can use the baseball analogy. Can you not in Canada? Yeah, because we're not actually rivals in those ways, at least not in New York. So at the end of the book of Exodus, all the holy work of building the tabernacle, it was completed. That moment when it's all complete is a pretty good feeling. How did it feel here at Holy Blossom when all of it was done? I bet you it felt amazing. But something even more amazing happened when the Mishkan was finished. The Torah tells us, Uchvod Adonai malei et Mishkan. The presence of Adonai literally filled all of the spaces of the tabernacle. On this Shabbat, we pray that the presence of God will fill all of our sacred spaces, including our congregations, our beloved Camp George, our day school. Leo Beck, where's my head of school right over there, had a great afternoon leading Kabbalat Shabbat with a remarkable Kita Bet of that school. So in all of our spaces, our congregations, our camps, our schools, all of our institutions, may the Holy One dwell in us as we dwell in those spaces. But let us also lean into our responsibility to build a more just and equitable Canada where hate no longer plagues us. And may we ever be faithful to do our part in building a safe, secure, Jewish, and just Israel. And I promise that your Reformed Jewish neighbors who live south of the Canadian border will continue to strongly oppose the unjust and unwise policies of the current U.S. administration of afflicting our allies and comforting our enemies. May the Holy One give us all strength to build a better tomorrow for all of us. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek.